For centuries, capitalists ruled the world. They crafted a dystopian hellscape and commodified everything. Life, democracy, even the planet. Facing extinction, a rebel group emerged to challenge the capitalists. The online left, a group of deviants, Zoomers, and millennial misfits devoted to shitposting their way to a better world, one tweet at a time. Will they put aside their hatred of one another to defeat their capitalist common enemy? Find out now on Dystopian Times.
Witness destruction of everything that you known. While others chase the elite, we stand alone. Dark days coming, regardless, we never running. People still suffering, and everybody's wondering who's gonna lead the charge, who's gonna be the choice. Rooted from the bottom so the underdog can have a voice. Foundation, based in reality. Power to the people, people power, not a fallacy. Call it what you want it, but I know you hear us coming. Eyes wide open, cause you see we're on to something. The future on the line. We're here to redefine. Political powers recognize these dystopian times.
Folks, welcome to the 8th edition of Dystopian Times. My name is Mike Figueredo, and we have a fantastic panel for you today, folks. So, first and foremost, you may have heard of him before. He is, I think, the biggest person that we've had on. He also is a longtime friend of mine. He created a level in Super Mario Maker 2 that made me literally rage quit because it was that difficult. Folks, it is the great Farron Cousins. Farron, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
How's the surgery doing?
It's great. Day after was pretty rough, but I've got move. I can move my fingers backwards again, which is wonderful. So wonderful doctors down here, by the way, in this area. Super expensive, but really, really good doctors. We have the Andrews Institute, which is where all the athletes go from all over the world. So it's nice that that's, a 5-minute drive from my house. And that's, where insurance always sends you. So it's nice.
Hey, that's great. Well, I'm glad that you're feeling better. Super excited to have you here. And I know that the audience is excited as well. So thank you so much, Farron.
Thank you.
Well, the next person that I have is a newcomer to the game of progressive politics. I think he is the next Kyle Kulinski, possibly. Folks, it's a good politic guy, aka Mac. Mac, how's it going?
Hey, I'm doing pretty well. I'm just excited to be on this show. I've been watching pretty much every episode of Dystopian Times, and yeah, I like the whole feel to the show, and I'm just excited to be here.
Hey, that's awesome. It's cool that you've seen every single episode. I don't even think my husband has watched all of them, so that's good. He might be watching now, so disregard that if you are, Robert. Okay, well, folks, the next person, I wasn't sure that they were going to make it, but I feel a little bit bad because I think I pulled this person away from another cool live stream with another cool live streamer. Folks, it's the great Dylan Burns of Dylan Burns TV. Dylan, how's it going?
The world's looking up. Everything's on fire, but, so is this stream. So I think we'll be good.
Hey, perfect. How's Papa Burns doing?
Oh, he is, he's doing a lot better.
Okay.
They were able to get 3 stents in his heart. They were able to revive him after 11 minutes. So, I didn't think he'd make it, but he did. And he was able to take a picture with me, flipping me off. So I think he's fine.
That if he can do one of those like hospital middle finger pictures, everything's gonna be okay.
Exactly.
Well, folks, I'm really excited to get started here today. We have a really diverse array of topics. The first thing that I want to talk about is the Line 3 pipeline that is making some headlines recently. The first thing that I want to show us is a video from Democracy Now! For those of you who haven't kept up, this is just like a really brief explainer video, but it's really, really informative.
Appeals Court has denied an appeal aimed at halting construction of the Enbridge Line 3 tar sands pipeline in northern Minnesota. In a 2-to-1 ruling, the court upheld Minnesota Public Utilities Commission's approval of the 340-mile-long pipeline. More than 700 people have been arrested since June in Indigenous-led protests against the pipeline. Indigenous lawyer Tara Hauska of the Ginu Collective condemned Tuesday's ruling.
Today's ruling from the Minnesota Supreme Court is yet another example of Minnesota not responding to the climate crisis, not respecting Indigenous sovereignty, and continuing to ignore what's happening in real time all around us with smoky skies, the world burning, the rivers in drought, and water protectors being brutalized by police that are being paid by Enbridge.
And one thing that I want to add to that is Roots Action is showing some really great videos of the footage from the protests. You see people marching, I believe, like thousands of people here. And now the situation has come to this where a lot of people, including many lawmakers, progressive lawmakers, are exerting pressure on the Biden administration to halt the construction of the Line 3 pipeline. This is also from Democracy Now! And I just want to read this real quick before I take it to the panel. So more than 24 Democratic lawmakers are calling on President Biden to halt construction on the Enbridge Line 3 pipeline in northern Minnesota until a thorough environmental review is undertaken. Meanwhile, Indigenous leaders Winona LaDuke and Tara Huska met with UN Special Rapporteur, I haven't said that word out loud in like years, on human rights defenders last week to share the police violence suffered by water protectors at the Line 3 construction site. Activists say law enforcement ramped up their brutal attacks last week, dislocating one person's jaw, but land and water defenders say they will continue their resistance. Repertoire, I think. It's going to bug me. So basically, this feels like a repeat of history. A couple of years ago, towards the end of 2016, we saw the same thing with the Dakota Access Pipeline, where we had this private military/police force that was brutalizing protesters, literally sicking dogs on peaceful protesters. And really, we got word from the Obama administration that he would just kind of wait to see how everything happens. And we're in the same situation essentially now, where we're hoping that the Biden administration takes action. He hasn't necessarily spoken much about this, if at all. And he's not really reacting to pressure. And it just feels a little bit surreal to still be talking about the construction of new pipelines in 2021 after the IPCC just told us that we're basically fucked when it comes to climate change. So, Mac, you've talked a lot about the Line 3 pipeline. What are your thoughts on this situation?
Yeah, I mean, this is just one of those examples, I feel like, where Biden, he'll go out there and he'll make speeches where he's paying lip service to how he cares about addressing climate change. And then you just see him go radio silent on something like this. It's like, it's completely ridiculous. Like you said, I mean, we've seen this game play out before. And, I mean, there's no reason why after, again, the IPCC report that you just said, giving us as much of a red alarm as you could possibly have on climate change, then, there's no excuse right now for even staying silent, but even allowing something like this to happen. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
And it's frustrating because, there's only, I think the article said it was like 40 lawmakers or so. But really, or 24 Democratic Party lawmakers. I mean, every single Democrat who purports to care about climate change, I mean, this should be their go-to issue. They should be exerting pressure on the Biden administration, because this is, again, like, not only is it egregious because of the lack of proper environmental review, but we're not respecting Indigenous rights. I mean, we've seen throughout history, the United States government isn't honoring treaties with Indigenous peoples. And it's just, it just feels like history is repeating itself. Dylan, what's your take on this?
Generally, my take is that, first off, I would like to say that I support anybody engaging in direct action on the ground right now.
Absolutely.
Physically going out there and putting yourself in the way of police batons, pepper spray, police dogs, all of this takes an enormous amount of bravery, and you're putting your body at an extreme risk to do this. So I just want to give like a direct round of applause to the people who are actually putting themselves on the ground to do it, because if it wasn't for that, then the Dakota Access Pipeline would have been a non-issue for most people, because the media didn't cover it until the violence against protesters started, and it was very clearly that the local community did not want that to go through. The same thing is true here, that the media didn't cover this until people put themselves in between the profit motive and their local community. That is when people started to cover this. So the first thing, all compliments need to go to them. The second thing is, this should be a rallying cry for people trying to push on climate change and trying to fight climate change. Right now, Biden has the opportunity to go after this issue. He did the same thing. He proved that he can do it. He did it with Dakota on the first day in office. We saw him do this. So it's not like he doesn't have the ability or he doesn't have the political leanings to do it. He has the ability to do it. So for me, I think it's merely a conversation of how are we going to pressure Democrats into doing this? Because the Republicans are a lost cause on this one. There's no way in hell we're going to get Republicans to be able to, number one, care about indigenous people's rights, the Republican Party, or about the environmental impacts that this could have. And the thing is, if you look at the demands that are being made, these aren't extremist demands like you need to blow up the project. You need to. It's simply, a lot of these are just give it larger environmental review. And if that itself cannot even be met, then I don't know what could possibly be met. Just literally a question of have a conversation with the community, because it feels like if you can't even put in the effort to put in a larger scale environmental review on a project of this size, then it feels like you don't even want to have the conversation with the community. It sounds like you don't really care about what the community thinks, so you shouldn't be surprised when the community comes out in force and stops you from doing your project.
Yeah, I wanted to, great points, by the way, Dylan. I wanted to ask Farron, because you oftentimes cover a lot of legal issues and whatnot. And a lot of what we're seeing with the Biden administration, what's being greenlit, and a lot of the continuation of the projects from the Trump era is all the result of Attorney General Merrick Garland. Do you know, like, who in the Biden administration is like pulling the strings here? Because it feels weird. When Biden came into office, I was giving him credit for canceling the Keystone XL pipeline, being to the left of the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. But now we see basically inaction on Line 3. And I just, like, what do you think is the underlying motivations here for the Biden administration?
I think they do things when they think they're going to get a lot of, good reaction from it. They looked out over the country. They saw the opposition to Dakota. They saw the opposition to Keystone. So they understood by doing this, we're going to make a lot of people happy. We're going to get some good publicity in these early days. We're going to get some progressive street cred. But Line 3, nobody knows what that is. There's been no coverage of this. Yes, we know about it. We've talked about it. But outside of these small circles, most people aren't familiar with this. This is not an issue that has been as, well covered, I guess, as it should be. So they don't see, I'm assuming, and I don't think they see any benefit to it right now. So as Dylan pointed out, we have to make this a bigger issue. We have to make sure that we continue talking about it. It's the same thing that we did with the Keystone XL pipeline. I mean, I was writing for DeSmog blog about the problems with Keystone, all the way back in 2010. And back then people, well, what is this thing? What's it about? It took a long time. And unfortunately, as we know from the IPCC report, we don't have that kind of time. So these lawsuits are great. And honestly, legally speaking, it is kind of shocking that this Minnesota Supreme Court ruled in the way they did, because if a proper environmental review was not done, legally speaking, the project should not be allowed to go forward. So, that kind of blows my mind. We just saw a project in Alaska last week put on ice because they did not do a proper environmental review. So we're seeing progress in some areas. We're seeing nothing in other areas. And what concerns me about it is that's what we saw with Obama. We had really great action in some arenas when it comes to environmental protection, emissions. The Mercury and Air Toxic Standards Act was wonderful. And then we increased offshore drilling to a level never seen before in this country. Domestic oil production was booming. Fracking was exploding. So good and bad negates progress. And we're in a position we can't negate progress now. We have to be moving forward, especially after 4 years of moving backwards. So if it's a whole publicity thing, they don't know that enough people care about Enbridge to actually do something about it, then it is up to us to make a big fuss about it, to publicize this, and to make sure everybody knows what this is and why it's such a bad idea.
Yeah, and these are great points. If you're watching this right now, make some noise, because I feel like this really is an easy win for Joe Biden. He knows that people are thinking more deeply about climate change than ever before. We have more organizations now related to climate change and climate action than ever before. So I think that trying to stop this, we just have to make enough noise. And the difference between this and the Dakota Access Pipeline, if I could point out like these parallels, is that there was actually a lot of people dedicated to the Dakota Access Pipeline. Every single left-leaning YouTuber was talking about DAPL. You know, activists were kind of like flying across the country to talk about DAPL. And with this one, I don't necessarily see that. And I think that part of the issue is that everyone is just kind of exhausted because there's so much going on right now. You know, a global pandemic, extremism in the country. It's exhausting. So a lot of people have tuned out, but I think that this isn't necessarily a lost cause. I do believe that this is something that we can make progress on so long as we sufficiently exert enough pressure on the Biden administration. So yeah, folks, line 3 is really important. And I hope that more people pay attention to this and follow this, because again, in 2021, I don't want to hear anything about the construction of new pipelines. We should be thoroughly converting our entire energy infrastructure to clean, green, renewable technology. And I just, this feels insane to put it frankly. But I wanted to move on to another topic. I'm not sure how many of you talked about this. I didn't actually talk about this. But this is concerning OnlyFans. So they made a lot of noise, or pissed a lot of people off, I should say, when they announced that they would be banning sexually explicit content. Now, there were some reasons as to why they said that they decided to do this. Part of it was they were not necessarily able to easily secure new investors. Also, banking was an issue. JP Morgan Chase apparently was not allowing transactions for certain sex workers on the platform. But I just want to read a little bit of this and get your take, because this is a really bizarre story, and it makes me feel like we really haven't made progress in the United States when it comes to sex positivity and normalizing sex work and treating sex work as work. Because like all of these sex workers that built up this platform, just like in one fell swoop, they saw the rug pulled out from under them. And, you know, we're not on the platform, but on YouTube, I'm sure that, you know, all of us individually have experienced moments where it's like, kind of feels like this isn't sustainable. So this is from Ivana Sarek of Axios. So OnlyFans, an online creator platform known for its adult content, announced via Twitter Wednesday that it has dropped plans to ban sexually explicit content on its platform in October. The move comes after the proposed ban sparked an outcry from sex workers who relied on the platform to safely make a living. Thank you to everyone for making your voices heard, the platform tweeted. We've secured assurances necessary to support our diverse creator community and have suspended the planned October 1st policy change. Now, to make matters worse, I'm not sure if you all have been following the story. So after they announced this ban of sexually explicit content, they put out this incredibly patronizing tweet saying, hey, sex work is work. We support sex workers. We stand by sex workers, as they like basically deplatform all of them. So OnlyFans announced the proposed ban on sexually explicit content last week. So just to show you, like, this is a flip-flop within a week. The company has struggled to attract outside investors, and the move was done at the request of its banking and payout partners, it said. The move concerned many sex workers who had made long-term financial commitments, including mortgages, based on the presumption that they'd continue posting on the platform. Now, one of the largest creators on OnlyFans says, we should all be suspicious of the word suspended and continue to build up pages on backup platforms. As a sex worker, we are never truly safe anywhere we go. And this is really an important point, because, you know, finally, when you see a platform in, 2021 America that seems like, sex workers are finally safe, they have an outlet, this happens. So anyone want to weigh in on this? Because I feel like this story is, we've got a long ways to go, folks. I don't know. Maybe somebody has a less doomer take than me.
So I remember when I was an intern for a healthcare workers union, and 1199 SEIU. And I was, during one of the times I was learning and growing while studying under some organizers there, we went and we were talking to political candidates who were going to run in DC for DC elections. And they went on and on and on in conversation. Eventually, it turned to Dylan and said, Dylan, we're about to wrap up. Do you have any questions? And I just thought, and I asked the person, what's your thoughts on decriminalizing sex work? and it felt like I had just pulled the pin off of a grenade. I have no idea why it was such a bombshell. This is an industry and a profession that has existed since before the birth of Jesus Christ, and it will exist until this world collapses in on itself. So the idea that people had really considered running for office or going out there and getting that deeply involved in politics, and just the word sex work just like gets them a little hot under the collar on what they're about to say is so strange to me. Because it's not like nobody understands what this is. Everybody knows what it is. So why is it such a dirty word? And so I think the biggest thing we need to do to make it easier for sex workers to work is to destigmatize the profession. Now, people can make moralistic arguments about, well, I don't like sex work for this reason, or I don't like sex work for that reason. And then I could just say easily in response to them that there's a lot of professions that I don't think I would like to participate in. I don't think anytime soon I'm going to be a sword swallower or a fire breather. But you know what? I don't think I can just ignore them and those jobs are going to go away. They're going to continue to exist. They've existed for a long time. So the best thing we can do is make it a supportive environment for these individuals, destigmatize this, and talk about it so we can actually address the issues that sex workers face, so we make it as safe as possible. Prohibition did not make people stop drinking alcohol. It just meant people started drinking poison alcohol and people died at higher numbers. The more this is stigmatized, the more that this has to be done in back rooms and alleyways, and the more risk you place upon sex workers and those who consume the product that they put out there.
Yeah, no, and that really is an interesting thing that you mentioned about how it was like a bomb when you asked the politician about this. I feel like that's even true on the left. Like on the left, we like to talk about how egalitarian we are, how advanced we are in our thinking. But really, like a couple of years ago, like I saw conversations from a left-wing standpoint that, you know, this whole industry is horrible. There's exploitation. And Mac, what do you think about this argument that from a left-wing standpoint, we shouldn't necessarily support this because it's inherently exploitative? Oftentimes sex workers, they don't do it because they want to. Like, I feel like this argument is bogus, and everything that is a negative from a left-wing perspective about sex work, that's like all the more reason why we should bring it to light, stop making it, you know, remain in the shadows, make sure that it's decriminalized and legalized. What's your take on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I 100% would fall in the same camp as Dylan on this. I mean, I think that's a ridiculous argument, but no, I mean, 100%. Like, this is the same thing as the abortion argument to me is like, you can criminalize abortion, but, you know, people are still going to get abortions, and all you're going to do in the process of criminalizing it and making it more difficult for people is you're just going to make it more dangerous for people. So it's just ridiculous. 100% right by Dylan that, yeah, we need to be destigmatizing it, you know, talking about it as much as possible. And just on another front, like, I don't even understand this from a business perspective, from the perspective of OnlyFans. Like, wasn't this kind of like the whole thing that they were doing? And then they just kind of decide, oh no, now we're going to bow down to the credit card companies and completely change our business model. It didn't really make any sense for me the entire time throughout this story. So I kind of understand why they backtracked and then realized like, oh shit, okay, maybe we're going to be losing a substantial portion of our business. So, you know, it doesn't matter if we have the credit card companies. But yeah, no, I think 100%. We need to be destigmatizing it, talking about it openly. It's not something that should be in the shadows of society or anything like that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I wanted to ask your thoughts on this, Farron, because you've covered politics publicly for longer than any of us. Have you seen any progress on this issue? Do you think that sex positivity is something that has increased over time, even like in leftist circles? I still feel like it's really, really, you know, if people are pro-sex positivity or pro-sex workers, they still don't necessarily want to talk about it because in America, we kind of have this like weird aversion to, you know, discussions about sex and sexuality. And I feel like that's starting to change in large part due to younger generations just being more vocal. But have you seen any progress? Because I feel like if we've made progress, it's been like almost nothing.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's been progress, but it's almost so small that you don't really notice it. You know what I mean? You know, we've changed attitudes in some ways where we're starting to come around to certain things, but then when it comes to actual, you know, sex work, that one is still the big taboo. You can't talk about it. You can't do it. You can't be near it. You can't even say that I'm okay with it without that massive stigma. And it's so weird how we have these stigmas on these things here in the United States, because people get cringy about it only because they feel like they're supposed to. That's really what it comes down to. It's just these trained behaviors like, oh, okay, you're talking about this thing. Well, I think I'm supposed to not be okay with this. That's how I was taught, and that's because that's how they were taught. There's no real logic when you start digging into these people's arguments of why this is not good, why you shouldn't support it. There's nothing there. It's just because we've been pounding it into our heads for decades and centuries, really, that, oh no, this is only what the bad people do. But that's not the case. I mean, that's absolutely not the case here. And I think OnlyFans has been a wonderful outlet for people to do this again and stay safe doing it. Yeah. And then, they try to go corporate, and we all know what happens when that happens. It's the same thing that happened when, drug companies were suddenly allowed to advertise on TV. Oh my God, look at how much money we're making. Let's focus more on the money than on the creating new things. That's when drug prices in the US skyrocketed. When you started having defense contractors, Lockheed Martin and Boeing advertising their services, and General Dynamics, General Electric, on corporate media. Like, that makes no sense. Are you going to go out and buy missiles? Are you going to go buy a jet? No, you're not. But what they're doing is they're buying the loyalty. Anytime the corporations start coming into something, they destroy it, is the point. And that's what they tried to do with OnlyFans. And hopefully this is more than just a suspension of this, change of heart. Hopefully it's okay. We realized, wow, we messed up. We're not going to do that again. Things are going to keep rolling the way they were, and everybody's happy.
I agree that we need more investment in here. We need to build the next generation of fleshlights as soon as possible. We need to invest in this industry, move forward. Okay, I am looking forward to the technological bliss that awaits us. But I have one question for the group. When I bring this up, and I do bring this up with local politicians, and it is a topic that gets them uncomfortable, because the term that comes up is red light district. That, well, this is an interesting idea, but if we do it here on the locality, what we'll do is create a red light district, and we're going to make a lot of people feel a little unsafe, because then our little locality is where everybody is going to travel for sexual tourism, and then we're the city of the quote unquote degenerates. How do you guys think we should respond to that? Because the red light district talking point has been thrown around, because a lot of people don't necessarily want to be like Amsterdam.
I think the best way to say that is, it's already happening. You just don't know about it. But I think people, because you don't know about it, suddenly you think it's not in your community. No, it is. It is. You're just happy living in your little ignorant bubble, not knowing the terrors that face these sex workers every day. If we can provide them with safety, if we can make sure that everything is cool, calm, and under control, properly vetted, and protect these individuals, this might actually be a net benefit. Not actually, it definitely would, for local economies. And again, as you said, you may not like what they do. And yeah, there's plenty of jobs. I don't like that people pump oil out of the ground, but I'm not saying you shouldn't have a right to do that job. So, I think there's definite inroads that can be made there. Possibly somebody more eloquent than me, would be able to explain it a little better and maybe convince more people. But people need to understand that just because you don't like it, just because you don't want it happening, it's already happening where you are. I can promise you.
Yeah.
I think
oh, sorry, my bad.
No, go ahead, Mac.
I was just going to add on. Yeah, I think Farron is right, is that it's the abortion thing is you can criminalize something, but it's not going to go away. But then in addition to that, to answer Dylan's question, I think that a lot of reasons why Americans would be super hesitant to accept something like that is because of the nature of how sex work functions currently in the United States and how we typically have understood it historically here, because we've never had, communities that are accepting of it or, having actual protections and changing that dynamic. So it's like, it's something that we haven't even had a perspective on here in the United States. So I kind of, would understand why people would be hesitant to accept something that would be such a dramatic change. But yeah, that's why we have to continue, I guess, destigmatizing it and making it more mainstream like that.
Yeah. On that note, I think that destigmatizing it is that would be accelerated if the law changed. And I've seen this, so many times just in my lifetime, just in the time that I've been covering politics, like when marijuana was legalized in Colorado and Washington. I mean, immediately within 5 years, people who I knew personally who were very anti-pot, I'm buying them weed for Christmas. Everything. Marriage equality, 2015, since it was legalized, support for marriage equality skyrocketed. So I think that in the event sex work was actually legalized and brought to light, I think that would have a cultural impact. And just to kind of go back to what we were all talking about, this weird cultural aversion to sex in the United States. I'm going to date myself here. So I was a manager at Blockbuster before, and I've talked about this on my streams. And I would have parents sometimes, they bring up movies and they say, do you know if this movie is like appropriate for kids? And I'd be like, no, this movie, they chop off heads. Like you don't want to watch this. Like your kids are too young. And they'd be like, well, I don't care about that, but is there any sex in it? And like, wait, sex is natural. Chopping off heads is not natural. You want your kids to see the heads getting chopped, or don't. It's really weird to me that we even are more comfortable with violence as a society. And of course that's anecdotal, but it's such a weird thing. And it kind of goes back to what Dylan was speaking to, just this like, ew, like someone brings it up. Even in 2020, I know that Bernie Sanders had a lot of criticisms from sex workers because he voted on a bill that I think got rid of some website that I don't remember, like I'm blanking on the details here, that made it more dangerous for sex workers. And so this is something that I feel like we're going to have to work on. And the OnlyFans issue, if nothing else, at least kind of got the gears turning in people's heads. It certainly made me think about, oh, wow, we need to do more as leftists, I think, to try to normalize this issue. But one thing that I really want to normalize,
is there one example I could bring up before we leave that I think is a great example
absolutely.
of this? So everybody knows Grand Theft Auto and knows the controversies around it. But the biggest controversy that I can remember is people had problems with the violence, the drugs, and everything. But the thing that was the line too far that almost broke their ESRB rating and they had to like do a bunch of cover from wasn't the gang shootings. It wasn't the murder, the drugs, any of that. It was the fact that that at one point there was like a sex mini game that they removed. It was none of that. It was the fact that you could have sex in the game, and that caused 10 times more outrage than the violence ever could. The hot coffee bot, I think, was what it's referred to now.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah. That doesn't make any sense. Like it's so weird to where like we would rather see shootings and killings and murders, and that's all based, right? I'm a video game player, so I love the violence. But to say that that's like better than just like seeing something that is totally natural it's so weird to me. And when you sit back and think about it, it's like Americans have been conditioned in so many weird ways to have these weird and strange beliefs that it's really like it's worthwhile that we all just take time to reflect. But I want to talk about this story. So this is something that I saw before I went on. Okay, over the course of the last month or so, we have had multiple prominent anti-vax conservatives die from COVID-19. The first was Dick Farrell. He worked for Newsmax, and that's his real name, Dick Farrell. He worked for Newsmax. He was an anti-vaxxer, got COVID, died. Then we saw Scott Apley, a prominent Republican in Texas. Anti-vax, made fun of COVID and the severity of COVID, got COVID, died. Then we had Phil Valentine, was not anti-vax according to his family, but vaccine hesitant, got COVID, died. Last week, Chris Johansson, who is a GOP lawmaker from the state of Maine, he and his wife are both anti-vax. His wife got COVID, died. Days later, he was attending an anti-vax rally in Maine. And we have another story in this saga, which I don't know when this series is going to end. Anti-vax lawyer for dozens of Capitol rioters is now on a ventilator with COVID-19. This is from John Wright of Raw Story. Sorry, folks. I'm not laughing like at the deaths. I'm laughing at the insanity. Okay, so don't come at me, you pearl-clutching MAGA chuds. Attorney John Pierce, who has represented Kenosha, Wisconsin shooting suspect Kyle Rittenhouse, as well as more than a dozen Capitol rioters, reportedly is on a ventilator after contracting COVID-19. Pierce's illness was first reported Wednesday after it prompted a hearing for accused Capitol rioter Shane Jenkins to be delayed, according to independent journalist Marcy Wheeler and Washington Post reporter Rachel Weiner. Pierce is not at this hearing. He sent the lawyer from his office, who is not barred in D.C. Again, Wheeler reported. Mr. Pierce is in the hospital, we believe, with COVID-19 on a ventilator, non-responsive. One of the attorneys who was present reportedly told a judge. So this is the question that I have to the panel. And I feel like this is kind of a rhetorical question because you're all going to have the same answer, I think. How many deaths is it going to take of prominent conservatives before they actually start to take it seriously? My answer is there could be 1 million, and they're still not going to take it seriously. Farron, what's your take on this?
No, I agree. There's no limit. You know, to pull the quote from Mean Girls, the limit does not exist. So what we're talking about here, though, this story with John Pierce, this lawyer, I got a segment coming up on it tomorrow morning, actually, but I always make a point because I cover every single one of these when they happen. And it's getting harder and harder to continue to talk about it. You know, some of these people, you know, I always point out, listen, I guarantee you I never agreed with anything this person ever stood for, anything they ever did. But I wouldn't want any of them to die. Apley, like you talked about, has a infant son. Like that kid doesn't have a dad now. So he'll never know his real father, because of this stupid anti-vax bullshit that these people just have latched onto with this. And it is heart-wrenching. You know, I hate this because I look at my own kids and God, what would happen to them if something had happened to me, if I was this stupid and selfish? And luckily I'm not. But it's tough. But I always, again, I point out to people, I'm going to talk about every single one of these that happens because maybe there's one person out there that hears it that says, you know what? I'm gonna go get the shot. Because Valentine's family even said, because when he died Saturday, I think the family issued a statement Wednesday saying that he's going to make sure when he comes back, he is going to be more pro-vaccine for his audience. Well, they never got that. They didn't get to hear it. They never got that opportunity. And we're not hearing anybody, by the way, on their deathbed saying, oh, thank God I didn't get the shot. No, it's always the opposite. Like, why did I do this to myself? So I use these as teachable moments, and I don't know that we're ever going to convince everybody, but if we can at least convince one or two people maybe by talking about these stories, I'm going to continue to do it. Because even if I don't like you, even if I disagree with everything you think politically, I don't want you to die. But it is getting harder and harder at this point to have empathy because this is what happens. This is what happens when you're stupid. And I don't want you to die. But my God, my empathy meter is running really low right now.
Well, I'm going to be more blunt.
You get desensitized to it. Go ahead, Dylan. I'll let you be blunt because you'll say the things that I won't say and I'll live vicariously through you.
Wonderful. So this just feels like that old meme. I never thought the leopards would eat my face. Sobbed the woman who voted for the leopard eating people's faces party. Yeah. Who would have thought if you were able to fool yourself and all of your audiences that if you don't take the one thing that has an over 90% effectiveness rate to stop you from getting COVID, not only that, and people undersell this, not only does it drastically decrease the chance of you getting COVID, but if you actually do get COVID, your chances of surviving are still much, much, much higher. So it's not only that this vaccine helps stop you get COVID and it drastically increases your chances of not getting it, but then if you do catch COVID, the symptoms are most likely going to be less severe and you're most likely going to be able to walk away perfectly fine. It increases your chances dramatically. So even if you don't want to get it from the idea, well, it isn't perfect in saving me, well, then don't you want a better fighting chance if you do end up getting it anyway? These are people who have perpetuated these lies about this vaccine. These are people whose their words have caused people not only to die from COVID, but the people who have gotten COVID, they're going to have to deal with medical complications for the rest of their lives. We see the number 600,000. That's not the only way we should weight it. Number one, we should do it on an international scale. I think we're being very American-centric, but, we live here, I understand. But we need to think about the long-term health effects this is having on people. And the fact that these dumb fucks would rather that waited for so long for FDA approval, waited so long, and now that we got it, they are instead going to take fucking horse medication while the FDA begs them not to. I have empathy for human beings, but I cannot transplant extra brain cells into your brain. Science has not given me that yet. When it does, I'll do my best to do it. So I feel for these people's families, but I mean, it's like if I saw somebody stick their dick in the toaster and then jump in a volcano. It's like, I do feel for the family who just lost a family member, but we all knew what was going to happen.
That's a great way to put it. That was that was brilliant, Dylan. No, listen, I don't when I see these stories, it's not like I'm yes, another one is going to die. Like I think that in the event of that they survived, like Phil Valentine, that would be wonderful, because I think that them surviving COVID after being near death and promoting the vaccine, I feel like they would be more effective than if they died. So Mac, don't you feel like, well, I don't even know how to phrase the question, because I'm just exasperated at this point. Like, do you think that being desensitized to all of this is morally acceptable? Because I do feel desensitized. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, no, I mean, I 100%. I get it. Like at this point, we're months into this. We've seen, like you were saying, it's just story after story after story. It's not like this is a one-off thing. So you would hope or think that some of these people who watch their favorite conservative commentator get sick and then potentially die, or even barely survive COVID, you would hope that maybe that would be a teachable moment for them. But honestly, I'm not confident in that. We've seen the results of that. I mean, these people will shift the goalposts, no matter what happens. And we just saw that again, with the FDA fully approving the Pfizer vaccine. It's it was never about the FDA approval for a lot of these people. Now it's just about, so now you really trust the FDA. It's we're never going to get through to a large, portion of the population who are listening to these types of people. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how much my empathy meter is at right now, but it's definitely decreasing as time goes on. But yeah, I mean, I would hope there could be some teachable moments in here, but it just doesn't seem like there has been.
Yeah, this is where I'm at. I feel like I am very, very vocal about supporting vaccine mandates, because I think that, the hopium in this story is that vaccine rates are increasing, but they're not increasing enough to get us to the point where we're going to reach herd immunity anytime soon. So this is where I'm at with the situation, and anyone on the panel can weigh in if they want to add to it. I feel like we have two options right now. We can either mandate vaccines and at least get us to herd immunity in the United States, hopefully, and effectively stop it, put a cap on it here, right? We still have to take care of the rest of the world, make sure everyone is vaccinated. But we can mandate vaccines and then do that, or we can not mandate vaccines and choose to let the anti-vaxxers keep all of society in a perpetual state of plague, all because they're uninformed or stubborn. So this is basically where I'm at. I think that vaccine mandates are the only way we're going to have a shot, if it is vaccines that's going to help us end the pandemic. I don't know if anybody wants to respond to that, because I feel like that's a pretty controversial statement.
No, I mean, when this began, I was kind of more on the against vaccine mandates. But now that I'm seeing, in my home state of Georgia here, all of my local hospitals are filled up with unvaccinated COVID patients. It's I don't think it's acceptable for there to be a situation, and maybe this is selfish of me, but, I personally think it's more selfish of people to not be vaccinated. But, I wouldn't want a situation where one of my family members or myself, we get into a car accident or a heart attack or a stroke or just any other random normal illness that could happen. And then you're getting diverted from the hospital because it's filled up with unvaccinated COVID patients. To me, that's just an unacceptable red line. So if we have to do vaccine mandates to do that, I guess that's what we have to do. And then it becomes a question of how do you enforce vaccine mandates? Because, the flip side of that is I don't want a situation where, we have cops, that are going around and harassing a bunch of minority communities and using it as an excuse to, crack down on people. So there's definitely a nuanced discussion to be had there. But I think I've been trending more in the pro-vaccine mandate discussion recently.
I got two things I can say. The first thing I'll say is when it comes to who can die to or what can happen for these people to fall in line, Trump recently on his stage just recommended getting the vaccine and he got booed. He got booed by an audience for just suggesting it. Alex Jones turned on him for that, saying, I guess Donald Trump's really a dumbass, right? If him just recommended it, and after it, he had to backtrack, but you still have your freedoms and you don't have to if you don't want to. And it was just him backtracking so quickly. So if even he can't convince him to take it, then there's no one figure that can do it, right? There's no way that, and the thing is, we should have all been able to kind of see the scenes that were happening when we had a mainstream Republican candidate, Donald J. Trump, arguing with a surgeon and Ben Carson on the Republican stage in 2015 saying, I don't know, maybe vaccines do cause autism. Those are planting some pretty dangerous seeds that I think we're now reaping. But here is my bipartisan solution, okay? So I got something for conservatives, okay? So for the liberals, it's a vaccine mandate, right? But then for the conservatives, what we're going to do is we're going to get M2 Browning machine guns from General Dynamics, and we're going to fill them full of vaccines, and we're going to go through local communities and just shoot vaccines directly into the arms of every American. They can run and hide, but I will get a vaccine into them. And therefore, we help the defense contractors, which, the Republicans will love, and with the liberals get their vaccine mandate. So there you go. We got it. Everybody will be happy. There's my solution. Bipartisan.
That's even more extreme than my take. Go ahead.
I think there's varying degrees when it comes to the anti-vaxxers, right? You have people who are vaccine hesitant, I don't know. Do I really need this? Is COVID as bad as they say? And then you've got the Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s, right? The people that are actually cashing in on this crap. And I say that because that's very personal to me. I don't know if anybody's aware of this, but Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is actually the co-founder of Ring of Fire. He and Mike Papantonio began it as a radio show on Air America back in 2004. I was a researcher. I did research for Bobby every single week. He left, many, many years ago, but I've known him. I've worked with him. And this evolution from the very first time he put out that article, Deadly Immunity, we were just flabbergasted down here. We're like, what the hell? How this isn't even real. And we thought and we had hoped that was the end of it. But then to watch over the years, and again, he's been gone from us for many years at this point, to watch what has happened to him, how far down this rabbit hole that he has gone, it's obscene. And it's really, really sad. This was somebody that I worked with for over a decade. And now he's a menace. He truly is. His advice, if you can call it that, his lies are going to get people killed if they haven't already. And so to me, it is a difference between the people like him that are out there spreading these lies and this misinformation that they have been told, I know for a fact, for over a decade, that it's not true. There's a difference between that, and there's a difference between the people who are out there saying, I don't know if it's right for me, So when I say there's people we can reach those people. The Bobby Kennedys, the little groups he's running now, they're gone. They're gone. You're not going to reach those people. There's no bringing them back. So, that's my stance on it. And that's why a couple years ago, actually, before COVID, I compared anti-vaxxers to climate change deniers because I think that's an apt comparison. You're both looking at all the available data and still just saying, no, I don't want to believe that, so I'm not. And it actually pissed Bobby off something fierce. And he had messaged our producer, said, I want to debate fair. And I was like, I'm not going to waste my time on you doing this. because I'm not going to give you a platform again. And it's just, it's ridiculous. And I hate it. And I hate to see, the fact that like this guy used to be associated with us, and it's really embarrassing now.
Can I ask one really tough question that I don't even particularly, I think I know the answer to it personally, but this is a question. So a big issue you just brought up with the spreading of misinformation. Now more than ever, there's less barriers between people and communicating to thousands of people online, either through Twitter, Facebook, and all these things. And there's not a lot of filters. Like if I was to go out and tweet right now, COVID vaccine doesn't work. Like there might be like a notification under it or something like that. There's not a lot of filters between me and posting that. And that could affect thousands upon thousands of people and whether they decide to get vaccinated. It can have real effects on whether people live or die. And so my genuine question is, how do we tackle we can all say get the COVID vaccine forced mandate, but how do we tackle the topic of disinformation when it comes to things like health that envelops the lives of millions of people, when there's some people who are so financially incentivized to spread disinformation, whether it's about horse medication or COVID not working or COVID not being real?
I think that this is one of the biggest questions of the time right now, because this is all relatively new. Like we're only now recently reaching this phase in human history where lots and lots of people, most Americans, have access to the internet. And so this is something we have to figure out how to deal with. We want to make sure that we maximize people's ability to speak freely, but at the same time, we have to draw a line. Are we going to allow platforms to, profit off of misinformation? I mean, Facebook has been a misinformation machine, where there's most of the, I think it was like the Disinfo 12 or something. They come out of Facebook. Individuals like Dr. Tenpenny, who claims that the vaccines will make you magnetic. So I feel like when it comes to public health crises like this, I am about drawing a really strict line. And people will say that I'm pro-censorship, but I mean, everyone is pro-censorship to an extent, right? Like if somebody said that they were going to post a video of somebody getting beheaded and that was deleted, I think that most people would be okay with that. So it's just a matter of like where you draw that line, what's appropriate, what's acceptable. And when it comes to misinformation as it relates to public health, this has real consequences. People are dying. Hundreds of thousands of Americans have died. And so if people are actually propagating misinformation, these platforms, they need to regulate that. And I think that the little notifications on Twitter that you referenced, Dylan, is a really great start, saying this is incorrect. But if there are some voices that are very, very prominent, like Dr. Tenpenny, she shouldn't be on Facebook. How many, I mean, you can't quantify this, but how many people has she killed because of her, anti-vax misinformation? But then again, it's really messy, because if we decide that we are going to get rid of this on platforms, how do you do that? How does the government, regulate that? It's a really complicated question.
Well, another possible route that doesn't involve, having to rely on the tech companies to do the right thing, because, as you just said, they don't like to do the right thing.
Yeah.
If we could, and this is a slippery slope, but I'm offering it up as a potential solution here. If we loosened libel laws a little bit, just a little bit, and allowed these companies who make vaccines, whether it's COVID vaccine or an MMR vaccine, because the true anti-vaxxers, attack all of them. And we allow them to just take them to court, put them through the ringer, and basically, bankrupt these people. That's a path. We've actually seen the right wing start weaponizing defamation lawsuits against a lot of people on the left. I don't know if anybody else here has experienced that recently, but yes, it's really starting to become a weapon that they're using. And so I say in these instances, these companies ought to be able to do something about this, because they're the ones essentially getting slandered by these individuals. They're the ones who are losing money. Not that I care about big pharma money, but they are technically losing money. They would meet the standards for a defamation lawsuit against these individuals. So I think we need to loosen it for these corporations a little bit, let them go after these people and watch the situation sort itself out.
See, I think that is a good potential solution, but it does fall under the relying on private companies, which makes it so
Yeah.
tough. And it is a slippery slope, because it's like I've been kind of like on the side against these corporations. Like, I've played a 30-second clip of like a CBS interview with Donald Trump, and they've come after me, and it's like, okay, it's fair use, but I don't have a team of lawyers. So it is tough. And this is like the complexity of it. Like, I don't know what the answer is. Like, I know that this is bad and it has to stop, but I don't know what to do. And I think that this is something that people really have to try to have a nuanced conversation about, because any solution is usually demonized as, oh, well, that's just your pro censorship, or you're pro, like there's no nuance. It's always like this binary thinking. And I think that we really have to think deeply about this, because we've never dealt with this before. Like, we're in a situation where in theory we should be smarter than ever, because we all have access to mini computers, cell phones. And I sound like a boomer for saying that, so forgive me. But I mean, it's true. We have more information than ever, but we're dumber than ever as a society. So how do we adapt to this time? And I don't think that there's any like cut and dry answer to that. I think we're going to learn as we go along. The only issue is that there's a lot of deadlines that are catastrophic, climate change and misinformation with that, a global pandemic. So it's really hard. Like, we don't have the time to sort all of this out. So we're doing it real time, and it's not going too well. I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss, if I'm being perfectly honest.
I would suggest two things, and there's room for nuance on a lot of these things, but in my opinion, honestly, I think the world would be a hell of a lot better off if we just simply deleted Facebook and TikTok from existence. That's just my personal take on that.
I agree with that.
Facebook is more so like older people that are getting misinformed with all the COVID misinformation. But like, I know a lot of people that are in, even my circles, people who I consider to be pretty smart people, who get wrapped up in a lot of stuff on TikTok. And it's just wild to me seeing it. It's just a cesspool, like a breeding ground for this stuff. But so yeah, I think we should delete those from existence, and we'd be better off from this. And then number two, I think the thing that people don't necessarily talk enough, and I agree with both Dylan and Farron on a lot of those things that you guys were just talking about. But I think the thing that people leave out of the conversation a lot is we have a ridiculously rapacious for-profit healthcare system here that has consistently screwed over Americans for decades and decades. And so it's like, if you don't want to have a landscape where people are susceptible to misinformation, well, then maybe create a healthcare system where people actually have the ability to go and form a relationship with a doctor, and they're not getting screwed over by their health insurance company, and they're not falling into bankruptcy, and they're not getting screwed over by big pharma companies, et cetera. It's like, we need a complete overhaul of our entire medical system. We need to, push for something like Medicare for all. For health insurance, we need to nationalize big pharma. Those are the types of ways that I think we could actually, like, in a long-term way, address the problem of misinformation, is stop allowing for a situation where people don't trust the medical system in the first place. But those are just my takes on it.
Yeah, no, rebuilding trust in these institutions, I think that is important, because people rightfully, they don't trust the government. They don't trust big pharma. And I get it, right? These are, they're vultures. We live in a late stage capitalist society, so there's not a lot of trust to go around. But yeah, I think that rebuilding trust in institutions, trying to fight like this anti-intellectualism where we think that like doctors are part of some grand conspiracy, like trying to do all these things at once is important, but it's a matter of like, how do we get it done? So before we move on to the next topic, I just want to do a quick check here. So we're about more than halfway. So here's what we'll do. So we will get to our featured content creator of the week, give all of the panelists a 3-minute break. And then when we come back, we will get to the weekly dose of stupidity, featuring one of my favorite right-wing political commentators. So folks, this week I have a new content creator that I discovered that took my recommendation that leftists should occasionally touch grass to heart. And he films all of his videos outdoors. So folks, this is our featured content creator of the week.
Dystopian times.
Hey everybody, so my name's Eric and my channel is called Left Alone Talking, which I'm pretty proud to have thought of because I think it works on a few different levels. Look at that. Bam. Dragonfly on my thumb. First is, I'm in nature. Dragonflies fly on my thumb. I've been left alone to talk, And so that's pretty undeniable. The second is that I do fancy myself as somebody who's on the left politically, but then I listen to other media outlets and pundits, and what they tell me is that he's on the left, and that she's on the left, and that he's on the left, and that she's on the left. And these are people that I do not agree with, by and large, and I don't respect. And I certainly wouldn't want to be grouped into the same ideological framework as them, as the left. And so if I'm not on the left like them, that would either lead me to be on the right, which I'm certainly not, a centrist, which I just think would be embarrassing. And so I guess that just means that I'm on the left, but I've been left alone. And so then I talk about it, and that's what this channel is. So a little bit about me. I've worked a lot with different liberal institutions, primarily NGOs and nonprofits, mostly doing environmental organizing, but I've also done different mid-level management type things. And I've even worked for the Democratic Party during the general election in swing states for 2 cycles, but I didn't like it, if that helps anything. And because I don't like them mostly, but I'm able to rationalize it through kind of Chomskyan lesser evil voting arguments, which I think are valid, as well as a little bit of transparent careerism, which I use to mash down the cognitive dissidence. But I still feel gross afterwards, and I have a yucky taste in my mouth. And so what I do is if you see that, that's a van which I made, which I use to travel the country, and I see America, and America's pretty effed up. In fact, I even just traveled to Akron, Ohio to volunteer for one of the only Democrats I've ever liked, Nina Turner, and we know how that went. And I use all of that as righteous indignation, which I use to fuel the fire of my political YouTube channel. What else do I discuss on my channel? Really anything which I think is important and interesting, but under-discussed or poorly discussed in the mainstream, which unfortunately, in my opinion, is most of the issues. And most of those issues are depressing. And that's not an energy I want to put out there, and so I try to counteract it by doing little jokes here and there, and putting swamps in the background, and stones, and ferns, and spruces, and really anything to take the edge off. And I do quirky, fun thumbnails, which the people love, because it's a lot easier to hear about the Obama administration's immediate betrayal of the change that it promised to millions of Americans, which for the first time in their lives actually hoped that things could change, by instead immediately bailing out the banks which funded his campaign, and then refusing to prosecute any of the sociopathic executives on Wall Street which crashed the economy on a scale which is unfathomable, in favor of instead prosecuting more whistleblowers than any other president, as well as non-violent drug offenders out the wazoo and continuing the drug war. That's kind of depressing. But if the president is represented in the thumbnail as a mother mallard slowly escorting its ducklings towards the lake, that makes it great for everyone. And so I encourage you to check out the channel. Please subscribe if you're interested. I also did a 7-part podcast on Obama's memoir, which is I made into a 10-hour YouTube video and then broke into 7-part podcast and clipped into a bunch of videos. If you want to check out that, you can, but thanks for the time.
Well, folks, that was Left Alone Talking. I will put links in the description box. If you are watching this on YouTube, if you're watching on Means TV, you will have to go to YouTube and search for Left Alone Talking. I think we can easily get this person to 1,000 subscribers in the next couple of weeks. So let's make it happen and support independent media. But on that note, on Tuesday, that is the very last day that you could submit your channel to be considered as a featured content creator of the week, because on September 8th, that is the season finale of Dystopian Times. It won't be coming back until next year, possibly the year afterwards. I don't know. So make sure you get in your submission before Tuesday or by the end of Tuesday if you want it to be considered. So there's what is this, episode 8? So there's 2 slots left. Please make sure that you give yourself the opportunity. Send me an unlisted YouTube video and email it to mike@humansreport.com with the subject line DT_submissions in all caps. Folks, we've had some phenomenal people featured. We have had Anthony Park of Next Step Productions, Alex Kawa, Spencer Snyder, and the great Good Politic guy who's on today. So yeah, folks, definitely be sure to submit your channels. Okay, so I'm prepping the next segment. I don't know about you all, but I'm a huge fan of Dennis Prager. I think that he is incredibly entertaining, and when I listen to his podcast, I always feel like really inspired and invigorated, and don't ever feel the urge to fall asleep. This week, he is going to make a pretty bold claim for him. And he's going to assert that he's actually smarter than doctors. He knows more than doctors when it comes to COVID-19. So, folks, this is our weekly dose of stupidity.
In a world of politics dominated by the strange, the deranged, and outright insane, we'll now take a moment to shine a light on the craziest of what politics has to offer. This is your weekly dose of stupidity.
Okay, so this is the hottest take of 2021 by far, folks. Dennis Prager speaking to his expertise as it comes to COVID-19.
Why should doctors be any better than lawyers or professors or any other group that has disgraced itself in American life? There's no reason. Doctors have the same degree of wisdom as gender studies professors.
I'm just going to pause for a moment and say, press X to doubt, but we'll continue. And by the way, DP stands for Dennis Prager, in case people didn't know.
Does it?
The issue isn't medical knowledge. The issue is wisdom and courage.
So let me ask the panel something. If you have to have open heart surgery, would you want someone who had 12 years of experience and training, or somebody with wisdom as it relates to life?
I want them to tell me a nice story about a frog in the river as they tear my heart out with like a pizza cutter. That's what I want.
Yeah, and just like, I don't usually focus on things like this, but pay attention to the delivery. There is about like at least 2 different portions of this video where it seems like he's going to put himself to sleep, and this is the only right-winger who does this. Like, I feel like all the other right-wingers are at least animated to an extent, but Dennis Prager is like putting himself to sleep, and this is so bizarre.
Plenty of doctors who have it. Read about the Great Barrington Declaration from Great Barrington, what is it, Vermont or New Hampshire? Oh, is it Massachusetts?
This is invigorating.
He's not sure. He is checking. That's the good news. Bad news is it doesn't happen instantaneously.
Speaking of ASMR.
Massachusetts. How many people know about that? How many doctors signed that? Was it 1,000?
Is he okay?
More than 1,000 doctors signed that. Ask your doctor if he even knows about it. Your doctor knows nothing about COVID. Nothing. All they know is how the virus works. That's all they know.
That's
an
most of
amazing
it.
Thing that listening to this show, a non-doctor, you have learned.
Can we pause it for a second?
Yes.
Could you imagine being like, he doesn't know anything about cancer. He just knows how it progresses, how it grows, how you can get it. Like, what do you? Yes, he knows. They know basically. Yes, that is what you need to know about COVID: is how it progresses. Yes.
It's a contradiction, like within 5 seconds. Like, he immediately says that after saying that they don't know nothing. And I just gotta point out, like, we all have our off days, right? We're all on camera personalities, but oh my god, like he doesn't want to be there. Like he's dreading speaking, and like as the dude, like his Jamie looks up information about this, you could just tell he's like, you know what, fuck it, just keep the B-roll on for a while. I'm gonna like get some sleep. It's so this is so bizarre. Who watches this shit? I mean, holy shit.
Does he run this show at nighttime? Like, is this supposed to be something people just like put on and they fall asleep?
I mean, you would think, right? Because I'm perplexed by it. I just don't get it. And every time I watch a clip of this show and not like the regular PragerU videos, I just don't understand it. Like, someone who's 80 years old and has drank the Kool-Aid, they're not going to enjoy this. Even if they agree with everything he's saying, the delivery is so painful. I can't understand why people would listen to them. And look, I hate Ben Shapiro, but he's far more entertaining to listen to than this fucking hack who has DP everywhere. Like, why? Get the DP away. Like, stop, Dennis. Jesus Christ. Okay, so this is where he's going to talk about how he knows more about COVID. He's just some jagoff who does a podcast that knows more than doctors.
To this show, a non-doctor, you have learned more about COVID, more about masks than your doctor probably knows. Not only is it not a boast, it is totally meant to be an attack on the medical profession. I should not know 10 times more than your doctor about
Can I-
all of the issues with therapeutic.
10 times
Can I just
more.
be honest? If there's any group that is stupid to declare war on, it's doctors. Because if they see that you were saying that about doctors on the news and you roll into their office, if I was there, I'd roll them back out like that. I just kick them out. Just be like, oh, no insurance, done. Like, why would he? Out of all the groups to attack, why doctors and why now? It feels like we were all kind of united, at least like we should support frontline staff. But does he think the doctors are just like, I was told to put needle in arm and that's it? Like that's all they know?
Yeah, he hasn't gotten the message that every person who participates in society should have gotten by the age of 12. That the two types of people who you don't fuck with, doctors and people who make your food. He hasn't gotten the memo, but I mean, he's very famous. I'm sure that doctors recognize him. So he's insulting them, pretending as if they're stupid and he knows more than them. But yet he would absolutely beg for a doctor if he ended up on a ventilator or needed a ventilator. Or he'd go to a hospital if he had COVID-19, assuming he's anti-vax.
Has he actually publicly said whether or not he got vaccinated?
I don't know if he has. I'm going to assume by default he is anti-vax because he's a conservative, but I'm not sure, honestly. So I could be a little bit unfair here.
After hearing him say that, I really just want to be at the point. It's like, you know what? Fuck it. Conservatives don't go to doctors. Y'all just stop getting medical care altogether. Dennis Prager has solved all your problems.
Everyone go to Dennis Prager.
Yeah, and we're just gonna let the problem work itself out over the span of a few years here. I mean, if you listen to this thing that's talking there, and you're taking his advice over that of a medical professional, there's no hope for you. You're done. You can go ahead and just, maybe, I've got to be careful what I say here, but there's no hope for you. There's no redemption arc for somebody that listens to Dennis Prager and says, you know what? Yes, this sleepy man knows more than the guy that went through 8 years of training to become a doctor. Sure. No, if you're that person, just give up. It's over. You peaked in life. You're better than all of us. You don't need to worry about medical care. The rest of us will still, get it, but you don't need it. Trust me. You definitely don't need medical care.
Right. Or I mean, he doesn't realize what he's inviting because he actually does take callers on this show. So imagine if one of his fans who actually took him seriously called and was like, hey, Dennis, I don't have anything to add about the conversation here, but I do have this bump under my left butt cheek and I just want to describe it to you. Can I this is what you're inviting on your show. And I kind of want to call him. I'm not encouraging anyone to brigade. I'm not personally encouraging that. In fact, I am discouraging you from calling into Dennis Prager's show and trolling him. Definitely don't do that. But if somebody did that, I think that it would be objectively hilarious.
Hey, if you have the phone number, you need to give that out just so people make sure they don't call it.
Yes.
To troll him.
Yes, whatever you do not call 877-243-7776 Monday through Friday at noon to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is a number that you should avoid during those hours. I just want to throw that out to you.
Don't call and tell them about your butt
do not call
problems
that
and
number.
everything.
Yeah, they don't need to know about one of your swollen balls. Don't call that number, okay? I know that he's an expert.
I'm sure he can cure you with. I'm sure if you have cancer or a terrible degenerative disease, Dennis Prager can cure you with whatever the hell he has in his medicine cabinet.
Just throw some horse paste on it or something.
Exactly.
Horse paste, yeah. And some thoughts and prayers. Always sprinkle a little bit of thoughts and prayers on it. Okay, so we're almost towards the end. Does anyone want to take bets? If you haven't pre-watched this, does he make it to the end without falling asleep?
Put 50 on against that. I think he'll pass out and slide out of his chair, cartoon style.
It's kind of hard to say, right? And by the way, thank you, Mr. Anderson. That's 877-243-7776. Don't call this number. Please do not tell Dennis Prager, DP, about a potential medical injury that you encountered from DP, drunkenly playing on a playground.
Yes, do not.
I don't need to keep this PG, but I'm just trying to be respectful, okay? Just in case my mom's watching. Okay, so we'll finish off this video here.
And if your doctor thinks ivermectin is dangerous, change your doctor. And I mean it. Might be a nice guy. Go golfing with him or her.
He's
But
progressive.
let's check out another doctor.
Yeah. So, I mean, you heard it here, folks, from
To
Dr.
be fair,
Dennis.
he never clarified if he was talking to his horse or non-horse viewers when he gave that. So we got to give him the benefit of the doubt here.
That is true. That is true. I feel like we're being too uncharitable, so I'm glad that you pointed that out because, yeah, I feel like I've lost more IQ points from that, 2-minute video than anything else I talked about throughout the week. But it's just, I think the addition of him like nearly falling asleep is what just adds to it. Okay, folks. So
wait, I have one gift Easter egg for you that I prepared about Dennis Prager.
Okay,
I don't know if you know about.
This.
Do you know about his article from 2008, When a Woman Isn't in the Mood? Have you ever heard about this?
I have not heard of any discussions with Dennis Prager and sex.
This is a multi-part series that he produced where he describes in detail about why when a woman isn't in the mood, they should still sleep with their husband. So he made a multi-part series of essays and published them, which are still publicly available on his website, where he tries to convince people to basically, if they don't want to sleep with them, you should still sleep with them.
What? Wait, he's married, right?
His wife would be in the mood more often if he, wasn't busy writing articles about why you should just have sex with me anyway. Maybe try a little bit of romance there, Denny. You've got the nice, calm, soothing voice. Put on the Barry White, light the candles, and just say, "Darling, I know it's been a while, but shit, he's already out." Yeah. Yeah, I guess he's an expert in women who don't want to have sex with him.
Oh my god. Okay, that sounds like an open letter to his wife. That's weird. I don't
really
okay.
bad.
Yeah, he wrote that article for one person.
Like, here's just the one. Here's the opening line. It is the axiom of contemporary marital life that if a wife is not in the mood, she need not have sex with her husband. Here are some arguments why a woman who loves her husband might want to rethink this axiom. I mean, it really is just that for the entire article.
So I think we know it's implied there what the issue is with Dennis Prager, what's missing in his life, and the issues between him and his wife. I feel like we could be counseling Dennis Prager based on the information that we have in this short segment, right?
Look, I just hope he gets better game, man. I think, nobody deserves not to have game, and I hope he gets better. I wish him the best.
Well, he's on his third wife now. So and they were married in 2008. I already now know way more about Dennis Prager than I ever should. This is horrible. So I'm just wondering. So you said these articles came out in 2008. And he got
December 23rd, 2008 was the first of this multi-part series.
Oh, damn. Okay, so these must be about Susan then. Susan is the most recent wife, although it could be Francine. She was the second, or maybe it was Janice. I don't know, but Susan, Janice, Francine, my sincerest condolences to all three of you. I don't know which one of you was never in the mood, probably all of you, but solidarity on that, because that's a tough one.
Here's what I'll wrap up this by talking this article. I just bring it up anytime he comes up because this shit's hilarious. Here's his argument that men are animals, so just give them sex. Number 2, if this is true, men really are animals. Correct. Compared to most women's sexual nature, men's sexual nature is far closer to that of animals. So what? That is the way he is made. Blame God and nature. Telling your husband to control it is a fine idea, but he already does. Every man who is sexually faithful to his wife already engages in daily heroic self-control. He has married himself. He has married, knowing he will have to deny his sexual nature's desires for variety for the rest of his life. To ask that he also regularly deny himself sex with the one woman in the world with whom he is permitted sex is asking far too much. Deny him enough times, and he may try to feel this need with another woman. If he is too moral to ever do that, he will match your sexual withdrawal with emotional and other forms of withdrawal. He's talking about sex like it's heroin.
What?
Holy shit. I never needed to know or wanted to know that Dennis Prager was this goddamn horny all the time.
Imagine like the conversations that he has with his wife. Like, honey, I haven't asked for sex in 2 days. Some are calling me a hero for that. But I mean, what?
I also have to wonder too, were they sitting down at dinner and he's like, so, did you read my article today?
It's multi-part.
She's like,
series.
She's like twisting her spaghetti. She's like, so, saw the article that you wrote. You didn't bring it up. I am so disturbed after this segment. I didn't expect us to go down this path, but wow. Thank you, Dylan.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is do not call Dennis Prager at 877-243-7776 live Monday through Friday at noon from 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and bring up this article in perpetuity, okay? Do not do that. He would be very embarrassed.
Yes, please, let's be respectful and not call that number all at once too, and just don't bombard him with call after call about the mole that you have on your dick. I don't know. Oh my God. Okay. So moving on to the next video. This is another right winger who
potentially
is terrible. So this is basically what I feel like is a mask off moment, and it speaks to how far the right wing has shifted further to the right in the United States, to where he's just kind of saying like the quiet part out loud as it relates to refugees that we are hopefully going to admit from Afghanistan. Take a look at this.
Bringing potentially hundreds of thousands of Afghanis to America. This is a terrible idea. Now, we should learn from the disastrous experience Europe had with Afghani men and systemic sex crimes against women. Just a few weeks ago, a 13-year-old girl was raped and murdered in Austria, and 3 Afghani migrants have been charged with that heinous crime. And because of that crime, Austrian Chancellor Kurz, he made it clear just this weekend that Austria will not accept any Afghan refugees. Statistics show, as I detail in my new op-ed, that terrible case in Austria, it is hardly isolated. It's not just an outlier. It's the worst example, but it's not an outlier. Police numbers show the relatively small Afghan population there in Austria commits an astounding half of all sexual assaults in that country. According to the Hoover Institution at Stanford, according to their research, once the giant wave of Afghan migration to Austria began in 2015, total sexual assaults there grew by a staggering 53% over the next 4 years. As the Wall Street Journal reports, next door in Germany, foreign-born residents right now account for 1/3 of all sex crime suspects. Now, given these realities in Europe, is the mass migration of Afghan men to America really a good idea? Good for your wife, your daughter? The left will call us racist for opposing any amount of migration at all, since they believe in open borders. But we have to be brave enough to put up with their ridiculous aspersions and brave enough to discuss cultural differences that matter. Will these Afghans share our values? Will they try to assimilate into the American way of life? It's not likely. A Pew Research poll found that a stunning 99%, nearly unanimous, of Afghans believe that Sharia should be the official law of the land. Let me repeat that. 99% of Afghans believe that Sharia should be the official law of the land. For some context, let's compare that to Turkey, which is also a Muslim country, but a far more tolerant Muslim country. There, only 12% of their citizens in the same poll report that they want government-enforced Sharia law.
So there's a lot to unpack there, but basically, he's just saying the quiet part out loud. It sounds a lot like Donald Trump and why he was so popular. Like, he first came out and said, Mexico isn't sending their best. They're murderers, they're rapists. And now he's saying the same thing about people from Afghanistan. And I have to wonder, would he apply the same logic to other like statistical phenomena? I mean, for example, white men are disproportionately responsible for mass shootings in the United States. Should all of us on this panel be deported to somewhere?
Yeah.
A different white country? I mean, it just, yeah, I actually would like to be deported to Canada. Not that I'm from there, but you know, the things that they're saying here, it's ridiculous. And they kind of like try to preempt any criticism by saying, look, the left is going to call us racist, but here's why that's bad. And like trying to shut down legitimate claims of racism, because what that was absolutely explicitly racist and xenophobic. So when it comes to these questions regarding Sharia law itself is so broad, it's left up to interpretation a lot of times, where somebody who says they support Sharia law doesn't actually support what we view as Sharia law. And they play on like these things that people aren't necessarily privy to. You think that, okay, well, 99% support Sharia law. That must mean that they want to stone us to death. I'm sure that many conservatives would support like what their interpretation of Sharia law is, but it's just, this is so frustrating to watch. Does anyone want to weigh in here?
I think like the main thing that I noticed was at the bottom of the screen, he literally had on the chyron, it was like, it's not racist. Trust me. Believe me. It's really definitely 100% not racist what I'm doing right now. And I think that's like literally all you need to see to understand the dynamic of what's going on. But especially at the end, when he was talking about, would you want, these Afghan refugees moving into your neighborhood and interacting with your wife and your daughter? It's like, it's the same tropes that go back to, the days of segregation in the United States and what they used to do and talk about African Americans here. It's like the same old tired racist tropes, and it's nothing new. But on top of that, I think we have a moral obligation 100% to accept as many Afghan refugees as quickly and efficiently as possible.
So I actually know what study the guy is referencing with the 99%, and what he did was really scummy. Because what he's doing is misinterpreting data and not giving people enough context. Because if you read this, and I could link it to anybody who wants it, Chapter 1, the first thing this study says from Pew Research Center, because when he said Pew, I was like, that's a reputable organization. Listen to this. According to the survey's findings, most Muslims believe Sharia is a revealed word of God rather than a body of law developed by men based on the word of God. Muslims also tend to believe Sharia only has one true understanding, but this opinion is far from universal. In some countries, substantial minorities of Muslims believe Sharia should be open to multiple interpretations. Religious commitments is closely linked to views about Sharia. Muslims who pray 7 times a day are more likely to say Sharia is the revealed word of God. To say that there is only one interpretation is support the implementation of Islamic law in their country. Although many Muslims around the world say that Sharia should be the law in the land of their country, the survey reveals divergent opinions about the precise application of Islamic law. Generally, supporters of Sharia are most comfortable with this application in cases of family or property disputes. In most regions, fewer favor other aspects of Sharia, such as cutting off hands of thieves and executing people who convert from Islam to another faith. So when we talk about this, in the vast majority of cases, we're talking about like property disputes and family disputes. We're not talking about, and this is what he's trying to display, like cutting off hands and stuff like that, which could you make a note about the deep implications of Sharia law applied in family court? Okay, but I don't think Afghan refugees are going to come here and start a mass movement to change the family court system in the United States. I don't think that's ever happened, and I don't think anybody believes that's going to happen. And the other case where he brings up the specific instance of the 13-year-old getting raped, I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer, was a horrible man who did a lot of stuff. A lot of terrible, terrible stuff. If I was to try to use that singular instance to fearmonger about the white man is coming for you and he's going to butcher all your kids and stuff, it would be bad to do that because you're perpetuating a stereotype based off of one instance. But then the statistics he brings forward, like the Sharia law statistics, are terribly, terribly misguided, and he's not giving proper context to what he's talking about. What he wants to do is portray Muslims as a horde of people who's going to come to America and rape and kill and slaughter. But the problem is that isn't the case when you look at what the data he's even talking about. And the fact of the matter is, if he's saying that they're going to clash with American values, they are fleeing from what he's saying they're going to bring to us. There's Afghans clinging on the plane falling to death to get away from the Taliban. And they're not getting away from the Taliban because they think the Taliban are nice liberals who like gay people and are cool. They're getting away from the Taliban because they are theocratic fascists and they don't like theocratic fascists. So they're fleeing the Taliban to try to get to somewhere that would be maybe closer to a more moderate style of government that we would find in the United States. So again, he's twisting this information to fearmonger about refugees, so he can go against the old American ideal of bring forth your huddled masses. If there's ever been huddled masses, this is a great example of huddled masses we need to bring in.
To your point about him, misrepresenting the statistics, the one that really caught my attention was when he said, in Germany, I think it was, he said 1/3 of sexual assault suspects are a blah, blah, suspects. Okay. You're not actually saying the actual perpetrators. You're suspects. That is such a lazy word and such a lazy statistics. And it drives me insane when they try to do this and try to frame it as, listen, if you bring them over here, they're going to kill you. No, you listen. My wife and my daughter, the biggest threat to their lives, statistically here in the state of Florida is, well, at this point, either going to be COVID or a crazy white redneck. I mean, those are the biggest threats to them where we live here. And I think the Jeffrey Dahmer thing is a brilliant example. Like, sure, you can point out the worst of any particular group of people and say, oh, look at how bad this is. And he even specified, he said, that was obviously an extreme case, but the others are really bad too. Mm-hmm. No, they're not. If they were, you would have told those stories too. You would have bombarded us with all this information you have, but you couldn't. You had to cherry pick one thing and just say, look, clearly this is all of them. No. They have nothing. They have no substance. They have no facts. They have no statistics. It drives me crazy to listen to these people on the right, partially because we put a lot of friggin' work into what we do. Okay. We do research. I've spent so much time, so many nights just reading and reading and reading, trying to learn something to do a 3-minute segment on it. And these idiots just go out there, screw it, whatever. I don't need to know anything. I'm just going to make stuff up. Don't even worry about turning the teleprompter on. I'm going to wing it and I'm going to make millions of dollars. That's the life. It really, truly is. They're poisoning America, absolutely disrupting political discourse across the way. But sometimes you got to think, man, it's got to be sweet. You don't have to worry about anything. You just make everything up. You don't have to study. You don't have to research. But again, you're destroying the country in the process. So there's that trade-off, I guess.
Yeah, you make lots and lots more money than if you're on the left. You probably get funding. You get Fox News appearances. Like, I don't ever see many left-wing podcast hosts on MSNBC or even like Democracy Now. It's very rare. But like, I always see these really fringe, right wingers like Steven Crowder and whatnot. They get invited on Fox News, Newsmax. Tim Pool was just on Fox News. So yeah, it's irritating because part of the issue is that this has been done. Like, we're watching history repeat itself, as Mac was alluding to, where it's like they'll take one anecdote or one story and they'll say, okay, this black person did X crime, therefore all black people are likely to do X crime. Like, this is what we've seen time and again. And by now, you'd think people would be privy to the fact that this is just the propaganda tactic, right? They did the same thing with trans people in bathrooms, the trans bathroom panic. And when people actually looked into this, they saw that like the only anecdotes that they pointed to were transphobic cis women basically angry that there was somebody who they thought were trans going into a woman's bathroom. So it's not even like they were predatory. So they'll try to take these anecdotes and use this as a justification to totally subject an entire group of people based on their identity to, discrimination or second-class citizenship status. And in the case of Afghanistan people, they're not even here yet. So it's really easy to spread fear if we don't even interact with these folks. But the minute they actually are admitted to the United States, assuming we admit hopefully a good portion, then that fear is going to go away, because we'll talk with these people. We'll understand that we're human beings. They're human beings. We have the same interests. We have the same desire to provide for our families and live good lives. So it's just the fear mongering it's the same fucking story over and over. And I'm so sad that people continue to fall for it. And one thing that's especially fucked up, we ruined these people's countries. The least that we can do is admit them here. The people who want to come here, admit them here after we fucked up their country. But even before, we're fully out, there's already this broad, robust fear-mongering campaign against Afghanistan refugees. And it's a rehash of the 2015, 2016 Syrian refugee argument. It's the same shit. And at some point, we have to wake up and acknowledge that it's not people with darker skin tones that is the issue. It's other things that is causing harm to us. As you said, Farron, it's like COVID-19 or some redneck is going to be a bigger danger to your daughter and wife. So it's just, I'm so frustrated with this. And what's scary is that they're not even using dog whistles anymore. Like they're just saying it. Like they want you to think that all Afghanistans are going to do is come here and rape your daughter. It's not that these are the more egalitarian people from Afghanistan who are trying to flee the draconian laws that the Taliban wants to institute, as Dylan pointed out. Like these folks, they want to assimilate. They want better lives for themselves. They don't want to live under Taliban rule. So it's just, I'm exhausted. I feel like Dennis Prager now, because this shit just it drives me nuts.
I do want to bring up two things. One is a paragraph from an Afghan pilot that I did want to read, that I read anytime we talk about this. But first, I wanted to say this. So there was this Republican woman who's running in Florida. I forget her name, but carbon copy, dime a dozen, right? Mm-hmm. And she goes out and she says, "We don't need to take these Afghan refugees. We took Europe and America took all the Syrian refugees. Let the Middle East deal with it." If anyone actually looks at the hard data, Turkey took in 4.7 million people. Jordan took in 1 million or 1.3 million. Lebanon took in 1 million people. You want to know how many people we took in total? 50,000. There were some years where we took in 600. We did not take all of the refugees. We took barely any of the refugees. And so a lot of people will bring up immediately, well, at the end of the day, technically under international law, they need to go to the first country next to them. They do that. And those countries took the vast majority of them. But you know what? There's only so much space some of these countries have. There's only so much resources some of these countries have. And some of these countries are destabilized as well, or have been hosting refugees forever. I mean, Jordan has famously hosted Palestinian refugees for a very, very long time. And the idea that they can just take on millions and millions and millions and more is ridiculous. Not to mention, Afghan refugees are being treated terribly at the Iranian border and terribly at the Turkish border. And I think if these people are willing to put their lives on the lines for us in a dream that we tried to build with them in Afghanistan, then the least we can do is take these people in. Now, let's see if I can find this quick little passage from this Afghan pilot, because here it is. Okay. This is a question to the Afghan pilot. Anything you want the American public to know? Many Afghan soldiers died bravely. I've been fighting for over 15 years. We did not all just give up and quit. Yes, some did. Once the Americans left, we weren't ready to start doing all the logistics. The logistics, the maintenance, and the corruption really hurt us. I know people in the U.S. are upset that we didn't fight longer, but we've been fighting for decades, and some of us even longer. When the U.S. left, it really affected morale, especially how quickly it happened. We woke up one day, then Bagram was gone. Everyone got scared. It got out of control. I'm mad at many of the senior leaders who lined their pockets and simply vanished from the country. However, thousands of Afghan officers were not responsible for that. We were simply doing the best we could. There are a lot of Afghans who trusted the United States, not just translators, not just civil society activists, but also Afghan soldiers. We loved fighting alongside the Americans. Please don't leave us behind. Please, we will be great Americans. Does that sound like somebody who wants to come here to bring terror, or somebody who just wants to live in peace in the United States?
Yeah, but these things you never hear, right? The loudest voices are the ones like, we just heard from Fox News. I mean, immediately when we saw those viral videos of people clinging to planes, like that night, Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham, they were already fear mongering. So it's so frustrating that like those stories don't get out, and that we just like we demonize these folks by default because that they're the others. We don't know any Afghans, so it's easy to deduce the worst about them. But it's it's really frustrating because the right wingers are really ahead of us on this topic, and they always monopolize discourse when it comes to these issues because it's really easy to fearmonger and whip people into a frenzy and just think, well, you know what? I'm going to be risk averse and just say, how about no immigrant or no refugees here? I'm open to the idea, but I'm going to say no because I don't necessarily know. I've heard some bad things about them. I'm sure some of them are lovely. So it's hard to combat this level of propaganda and racism. But at some point, I hope that like we'll collectively as a society remember all of the previous times and the similarities with different groups and how the same shit is being said over again, and we'll just like move on and disregard the folks like the Newsmax individual. Well, folks, that is our show. I believe that I got to everything. We don't have time to finish the pet segment. I have like a gigantic thread of pet pictures, and I got through at least half of them last week. I'll find time sometime, maybe not on Dystopian Times, maybe on like a Twitch stream. But folks, thank you so much. The panel was absolutely fantastic. So one by one, what we'll do is we will tell or have each of the panel tell us where they are on the internet and where we can find them. So we'll start with Mac. What do you do and where can the people find you?
Yeah, so first of all, just thank you for having me on the show. It was a lot of fun. So you can follow me on Twitter, Good Politic Guy, or on YouTube. You can just Google it, Good Politic Guy. And I basically do like daily videos where I do a couple videos a day covering the news and little like bite-sized segments and stuff, explaining it from my perspective. So yeah, YouTube, Twitter, those are my main outlets, Good Politic Guy. And yeah.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Mr. Anderson, for the links. Dylan Burns, where are you at? What can the people do to support you?
Right now, I think the thing I'm trying to do is grow my YouTube. I'm really trying to push my YouTube at the moment. So if you go to my YouTube, I'd really appreciate it. It's Dylan Burns TV. It's just like what you see on the screen right now, DYLANBURNS TV. If you want to watch me on Twitch, I also stream on Twitch every weekday from 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to midnight. I appreciate the support there as well. You can find me on Twitter at Dylan Burns 1776. That's DYLANBURNS 1776. I appreciate any support you could throw my way, and I hope you all have a blessed rest of your week.
Yeah, thank you so much. Very patriotic. 1776. I like that.
Hell yeah, brother.
Farron.
You can get me the big YouTube channel, obviously youtube.com/The Ring of Fire. I also, about a year or so ago, launched my own YouTube channel, youtube.com/Farron, FARRON, Balanced, BALANCED. You can get me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Farron Balanced. And we've got a Reddit thread as well. So just go to Reddit, r/Farron Balanced. So yeah, basically, you ever want to find me, just type in Farron Balance somewhere. I no longer have to worry about Fox News using that. So, the pun is a lot less funny since they switched that. People don't get it anymore, and it really shows my age. But Mike, thank you very much for having me, and Dylan and Mac. It's been wonderful talking to you guys as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I had so much fun. And let me just say, Farron, your name is literally Farron, so it works out so much better for you. And you're actually fair and balanced. So I'm willing to sign some legal brief on your behalf if it ever comes to that.
Thank you.
Folks.
You follow me on Twitter, but I don't follow you. You juked me out before. Damn. Okay. I got to give you a follow.
Who do you not follow?
I wasn't. No, Farron was following me, but I wasn't following him. I just looked him up on Twitter to give him a follow, and he was ahead of the game.
Was it you or Matt that had the controversy last time you were on for not following people? I can't remember.
Matt still didn't follow me back.
Matt
Binder.
This is a call out to Matt Binder.
He's dividing the left more than Jimmy Dore. I'm saying it now. By him not following me back, he's dividing the left more than Jimmy. Right now, I'm saying it. It's the truth.
How dare you, Matt? How dare you, Matt?
Oh, he doesn't follow me either. That's crap.
Wow.
What?
I can't believe. Wow. This is damn.
Oh my God, Matt. Matt is getting called out left and right. Max checking.
Nope.
Damn.
What?
Wow.
Matt.
outrage.
Matt. This is a message to Matt Binder. You have 3 days to follow all of these lovely panelists, or we will call you Matt Binder.
True.
No, I love Matt. Matt's good. I was actually just on Matt's show like 3 weeks ago, I want to say. And yeah, always a good time. But definitely give these folks a follow, Matt. I mean, come on. Is there any other grievances that we want to hash out before we leave this program? I'm following all of you, so I'm the good guy. I'm the good guy in this situation.
Trying to think of a problem if I have any problems with Mike. I'm trying to figure it out.
Well, he's in the pocket of big oil because of all the tattoos. I mean, we all know
my
that.
God.
That's pretty bad, yeah. That's true.
That's my proudest moment of the 6 years of podcasting, getting criticized for my CO or greenhouse gas carbon footprint, whatever, because of the tattoos. I'm really proud of that.
that was that is going to live in my brain forever, along with the dick in the toaster and then jumping in a volcano. That's also burned in there too. So thank you for that. That's not going anywhere.
Maybe Mike can get that as a tattoo.
I mean, I have my dog's face tattooed on me, so my like standards of what I will get tattooed is relatively low. So I mean, not that I don't love my dog, but I mean, I got my dog's face tattooed on me. I'm one of those people. So yeah. And somebody's asking where'd I get my shirt from IGN.com. Not sponsored, but they had a $10 sale, so I bought a bunch of nerd shirts that I am rocking throughout the duration of Dystopian Times, and then I've used all of them.
Yeah.
I have one more Zelda, one PlayStation shirt. So yeah, folks. I think that's everything. We'll leave that there. Folks, thank you so much again. This has been so much fun. I will return after the credits roll for the bonus portion where I read through all the super chats. I get the people who come in with occasional homophobic comments. I love all of you equally. So thank you, folks. This has been Dystopian Times. I am Mike Figueredo. I'll see you all next week. Well, folks, that was a fantastic episode. Thank you all so much once again to my panelists for watching. So I have a couple of super chats that I missed. Let me pull those up real quick here. So we have, let me make sure these are from today, by the way. So we have Jeff Barnes with a $10 super chat saying we should restrict freedom of speech where it relates to medical advice that is determined by the CDC to be unsubstantiated by a panel of qualified CDC doctors. Yeah, I mean that's a pretty reasonable standard, I feel like. Yeah, thank you so much for the $10 super chat, Jeff. I think that's a pretty I think that's fair. I would tend to agree. It's a little bit tricky. And as Farron said, it's a bit of a slippery slope, but yeah, I tend to agree with you there. So Roma Check 75 says, I'm all for vax mandates, but these nut jobs will take it to court, and if it goes all the way to SCOTUS, we all know how they'll rule. Yeah, that is something that is worth considering. Although I will say I was pleasantly surprised by Amy Coney Barrett. She basically did not vote down a vaccine mandate for a university. I'm not sure which university. I can't remember, but a lot of conservatives were really mad at her for that. So I was pleasantly surprised by that. I mean, look, there's legal precedent in the country for vaccine mandates. George Washington, one of the founding fathers, supported vaccine mandates. So it's not like this new thing. It's new to us when it comes to COVID vaccines. But I mean, we all, we know about mandatory vaccines as it relates to school. It's not a big deal, people. Just get the vaccine. So we have another $5 super chat from Roma Check 75 who says Tampa is having to treat tap water with bleach instead of liquid oxygen because hospitals need the chemicals to keep ventilated COVID patients alive. Wow, I have not looked into this, but it's getting a little bit frightening. So in my state of Oregon, this is almost we're reaching the dark winter levels of COVID, and basically the governor had to call in the National Guard. That's how bad it's gotten. The hospitals around Portland are at 92 to 96% full capacity, and that was like a couple of weeks ago, last time I checked, and things have gotten substantially worse since then. We have a lot of rural areas in Oregon getting infected with COVID-19. It's spreading like wildfire, and it is really, really scary. So it's a really worrying time, and I kind of feel like the Delta variant, if people aren't going to take this seriously, then I don't know what it's going to take. Like, they see how rapidly it spreads, and you think people would want to protect themselves. And I don't want to be too doomer because more people have gotten vaccinated, but we need to reach herd immunity. That's all I'll say. We need to reach herd immunity. So Dieter McBusiness with a $4.99 super chat. Thank you so much for the support. Really appreciate that. 2 episodes probably isn't enough for me to win that contest you've got going on for new YouTubers, right? I'm a video essay guy. Love the show. Well, let me tell you this. So I'm not 100% sure. I believe I haven't reviewed all of the submissions. I'm pretty sure I've settled on the featured content creator for next week, but there is one slot open that I have not selected, like one for sure slot, but I'm not sure. I think I'm set on someone for next week. But I mean, it doesn't hurt to try. I would say submit it. And I do plan on watching all of them. If I don't get to that, then I would be surprised. I am going to try to watch all of them, but hey, give it a try, right? It's a 2-minute video, 3-minute video, and you can never hurts to try. Oh, there you are. Still there. Boom. Yeah. Is that, yeah, give it a try. Give it a try. Mr. Anderson says, I've become full agoraphobic. Me too. Me too. It's really tough. I started to try to re-immerse myself with people. And now that Delta hit, it's like, I kind of want to be reclusive again. I mean, I am interacting and seeing family members who are also vaccinated. I'm not going to be as reclusive as I was in the first stage of the pandemic since I am vaccinated. But it's hard to not be reclusive. I would like to get out. I would like to go to a movie theater. I would like to go and have breakfast, at a restaurant. I haven't done that since before the pandemic. It's not like I did that very frequently anyway, but it'd be nice to do it if I wanted to. It's just really frustrating. Chris says, I had horrible allergies last week and tried to get an at-home COVID test. There's only one within 10 miles when CVS gets 10 or more a day. In a red state, it was negative. Good. I am glad that it's negative. One thing that I can recommend, it takes a couple of days to ship, is I think there's this company called Everly. I'm not sure what the prices are, but they released an at-home test. And it comes with a prepaid envelope and the testing kit, and you send it back to them. And I think they respond within 3 to 4 days. I actually bought one when it was available. It was kind of spendy. It was $80, but I figured just in case there's a scare, it's nice to have that. So I would recommend picking that up if you have some extra cash, because in the event you need a COVID test, it might be a little bit difficult to come by if your community is not doing too hot. So Roma Check 75 with a $10 super chat. Roma Check, thanks so much for all of these super chats. I really appreciate it. Mike, I hope you consider pausing this great series. For such a lengthy period of time. 2 episodes left, and I already missed it. Well, thank you so much. That means so much. Yeah, I think that 10 episodes in total is a pretty good amount. When I initially started this, I figured maybe I'd do 25 episodes, but it's really, really difficult to do this. It's not like I'm doing this in lieu of the YouTube videos that I produce. This is extra work, and it's a lot. It's hard to communicate with people back and forth, talk to so many people at once, respond to DMs and emails. It's a lot of work. So I think 10 shows is good. And going forward, if I do any other side projects, 10 episodes is pretty good, right? Like if I do some documentary series or some other series, I think 10 episodes is pretty good. Iced with a $2 super chat. Opinion on Hassan's hotness. Yes, Hassan is goals. Hassan is goals. Yes. I'm jealous of Hassan's hair, especially. My hair is bad. I gave myself a buzz and it looks like shit. But it's okay. It's the last cut of summer. Oh, so there's $20 for 2. Oh, did I miss some super chats? Let me pull that up. If I did, I am so sorry. Let's see. Brian says, Mike, you should check out Reset Race. That sounds really familiar. I'm pretty sure I've heard of them. I might have watched Tim Black on their show. I'm not sure. If I'm thinking of the right show, they are... Is it... I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's like a reparations-based podcast, right? I know that's one of the subjects. I'm sure they talk about other issues. But I am really, really glad to see more channels popping up specifically to support reparations. I absolutely support reparations. I think that more people need to talk about it. My soul was crushed in 2020 when I saw how many leftists didn't support reparations when it was brought up with Bernie Sanders. So I want the leftists to take this seriously because it's an issue that is really important. It's a matter of like morality and legality. Reparations and black issues. Okay, yeah, thank you. So I'm pretty sure I know this channel. Yeah, I like their content. I think that it's good. They criticize a lot of other like podcast hosts, but I think that's important. The way that they do it is always constructive. They hold lefties accountable. They might have even criticized me. I'm not sure, but I think it's really important. Oh, at home tests. Okay. Thank you for the clarification, Tara. I wasn't sure. $20 for a test is pretty good. Yeah, I might have paid like 60, but I'm remembering 80. It was when it first was available in like September, October of last year. No, that was probably this year actually. I'm blanking on it, but I know the company is Everly, I want to say. Yeah, also social justice is the only way to heal generational wounds. Yes. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I feel encouraged seeing people support reparations. I did a video with Michael Graham. I can't remember when it was, like in 2019, 2020. And there was like a Reddit thread. Like we talked exclusively about reparations for like 45 minutes. And people on Reddit were like, oh, Mike is such an idiot, SJW. Now he's advocating for reparations. It's like... You can easily dismiss it if you've never thought about it, but when you hear the case laid out by people like Michael Graham, Tim Black, Sandy Darity, I feel like there's no way you can dispute it. There's no way you can dispute it from a legal standpoint, from an economic standpoint, and from a moral standpoint. Any podcast who's supporting reparations, I would heavily encourage you to check them out and support them in any way that you can, either if it's through like views, likes, and also through Patreons, because it's a topic that people don't want to look at. And that's really frustrating. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited about Metroid Dread coming out to the Nintendo Switch sometime in October. I will be definitely getting that. So I got this shirt from IGN.com. There was a sale. They were doing like $10 shirts. So I bought like 5 or 6 of them. And all of them have been incredible. They fit really well too. This one's a little bit big, but yeah, I'm very, very happy with that. Oh, thank you, Brian. Reset Race, for those wondering. Yeah, everyone, go subscribe to Reset Race. Incredible work there. Actify. Oh, okay, so it's Actify. Okay. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that I'm already subscribed to them. I don't know if they changed their name, but I am familiar with Actify because Michael Graham is with Actify Press. Yeah, I love that. I think it's really, really crucial that we support reparations, and we're not afraid to say it. Like there are some things that white leftists don't want to say, but I think that we should say it. We have to have the backs of Black people who they need white allies, right? We can't speak for them, but they could use the support. That's to say the least, right? General strike in October. I've heard about a one-day general strike. I don't think it's technically a general strike, if I'm remembering correctly. I think it's like a protest or some event to call for a general strike. I don't want to be super doomer, but a general strike is something that's very difficult to accomplish with how low unionization is in the United States. Like, I would be more optimistic about a general strike, and I support one, by the way, if there was more unionization, but there's no unions. There's no like organized labor power in the US, so it's really hard to pull that off. Having said that, though, I do support the idea of like calling for a general strike. So this event, I would definitely back it. Tara, you found the link. So this is the shirt that I'm wearing. Yeah. Super Metroid. I wonder, let me check. I want to see how much. I'm not sure how much it is now, but I bought it for $10. So IGN is kind of expensive. So usually these are like $25, $30. Yeah, that's a good point. You know, practice strikes can be beneficial as well. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. They are amazing. They are amazing. So let's see. Certain white leftists who don't talk about reparations or black issues because they know their base is white men or even a sizable MAGA audience. Yeah, I think that one thing that I've tried to draw attention to, and I agree with you, Chris, one thing that I try to draw attention to is audience capture. Audience capture is when you like inadvertently cultivate an audience that is misaligned with your underlying values and your underlying political ideology. And so you begin to adapt to appease the audience that you've cultivated, and you don't want to say anything that would offend them because then they might leave you. And so audience capture is a really, really huge thing on the left. And I think that people like Jimmy Dore is absolutely he's been captured by his audience, which is right, you know, mostly like right wingers now. Yeah, Think Geek does have cool nerd shirts. There's also a website. It's called Zavvi. I don't know if it's XAVVI or ZAVVY. I can't remember, but they also have really cool like nerd stuff. And I've never purchased anything from them, but I did look at their selection, and it does seem pretty good. Oh, so the shirt is $25. See, I wouldn't have gone, like, I love this shirt. I think it's dope, but $25 is too steep for me. So the $10 like sale that they had was that is what led me to bite the bullet. Because if I spend $25 for a shirt without trying it on and it doesn't fit me, that's painful. That's painful. Last general strike in the US was in 1946, and it lasted 2 days. Most people don't even know what a general strike is. They just like to posture online for a clout. Yeah, I mean, that's likely it, actually. I think that people... This is a little bit of, like, I don't have evidence. This is just speculation, but I think that a lot of people think that a general strike is just like when everyone protests around the country. It's a little bit more than that, right? And I don't know how many people have this belief, but a general strike is absolutely substantial. Like, it is serious. Like, you shut down the entire economy. Like, we're talking about millions of people not going into work. Like, it's a huge, risky thing. People potentially not paying rent. Like, there are serious consequences. So if you're going to organize a general strike, you can't miss, because you could fuck up people's lives. And so the idea sounds good on paper, but it requires really vast organizational power, which is why it's really important to advocate for greater unionization and work with unions if you're able to do that, to organize this, if it's something that you want to organize, because it's a hard thing to pull off. Yeah, it would collapse our capitalist system. I mean, we've all seen this, right? You can't, with COVID-19, our economy shutting down is catastrophic, right? They're willing to send people back to work in the middle of a pandemic, sacrifice their lives, all to keep creating, things that make capitalist overlords richer. So if you do something like a general strike, you're going to get people's attention, right? You're going to get the attention of lawmakers and the business class. So that's why people, I think they know about that. I think that a lot of people are relatively new to politics and don't necessarily know what's required to actually facilitate a general strike. It's not going to be politicians. Like, I don't think that someone like Bernie Sanders or AOC is going to be able to facilitate a general strike. I don't think that like podcast hosts can do that. I think it's going to have to be labor leaders. I'm talking about like the heads of major unions all coming together and collectively agreeing to go on strike. It's a very difficult process. But would it actually be effective? Yeah. So that's why like any talks of general strike, I'm supportive of. I just want people to understand what it entails because it's a lot. It's a lot. Michael Cuomo with a $4.99 super chat. Thank you, Michael. I'm surprised Marjorie Taylor Greene hasn't said Sharia law is a congresswoman that's a part of the squad. I know. It's a matter of time. Right? It's a matter of time before she says something like that. Magic the Gathering. She ruined that acronym. Well, folks, I am exhausted. So I think that we're going to call it a night and we will end right there, folks. I will see you all next week. We've got 2 episodes left of Dystopian Times. Most of the panelists, I think, I've got them on lock, but there's going to be a little bit more work to do to put that together. So yeah, folks, I'll see you all next week. And I will be live tomorrow on Twitch, twitch.tv/Humanist Report. I missed last week, but I will be here this week. Last week, I was desperately trying to finish up the episode for the main show, and I needed to take that night off to just like get shit done, and I did. If I didn't take that night off, I would have been working until like all through the weekend and not, been able to take a day off. Thank you so much. Both Tara and Mr. Anderson posted a link. Yes, folks, please, if you haven't already, go over to twitch.tv/Humanist Report. Give me a follow. I go live every Thursday, but after Dystopian Times, I'll likely be changing the schedule. I might be doing my Twitch streams on Wednesdays instead. Maybe expanding it to 2 days per week, depending. We'll see. But take care, everyone. It's so nice chatting with everyone. I will see you all later.